Yeah, even the judges there.
No, right here, that clock, that clock piece there. Would ask somebody to set the clock properly on that wall.
That's a sore subject right here.
Is it?
Well, it's not.
Not with us, but with somebody else. All right, it's 9:00. We'll call the meeting to order. Troy's gonna offer a word of prayer. Thank you for volunteering.
Let's pray. Father, we just thank you for this day. Thank you for these wonderful leaders that have been set in place for our county to lead this county in the right direction. Father, we just pray that you continue to lead them, guide them, give them the wisdom that they need to help this county grow. Father, we thank you for the rain that we've got. We're asking for more. Help fill up our lake and water the crops around our county. Father, we just, again, ask that you continue to guide these men and women in their decision-making for our county. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is citizens' comments. I'm not aware of anyone that's signed up. Is that correct? Consent agenda. We have 5 items. Approval of the agenda minutes from the previous meeting held on 3/13. Treasurer auditor report, burn ban, payment of bills, and an application to install a private line. Does anyone have anything they want to talk about, any of those 5 subjects?
Judge, on the bills, we are adding one more bill to the handout, so there'll be a corrected copy to sign.
Okay,
So we'll get that in here in just a little bit.
okay, thank you. What we'll do is we're gonna pull that off the consent agenda, and when you get it, you can circulate it and I'll make a separate motion.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Minutes of the thing.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of the payment of bills. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. This thing work? Oh. Employee changes, Sheriff's Department.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Sheriff.
I have several changes this morning. Of course, the majority of them is going to be in the jail. The first one I have is I hired Chase Cunningham as a jailer at the rate of $38,000 per year. They're replacing Ashley Ryan. The next one is I moved Daniela Alcorn from a temporary position to a full-time jailer position at the rate of $38,000 per year. Next one, I hired Jennifer Guardo at the rate of $38,000 per year in the jail. She's replacing Connie Belote, who was promoted to corporal a few weeks ago. The next one is I hired Dean Anderson in the jail at the rate of $38,000 per year, and they're replacing Timothy Harrell, who was promoted to sergeant. The next one is I hired Michael Huff to replace Jennifer Guardo at the rate of $38,000. And y'all will hear his name again. He worked 3 days and then quit, so he's still got to go through the payment process. Then I hired Ashley Rush to replace Michael Huff at the rate of $38,000 per year. And this next one, he's a deputy that I swore in this morning. I'm pretty excited about this. You may know his mama, stepmother Nina Valencia, but it's Francisco Valencia. I hired him as a deputy sheriff at a rate of $42,261.04 per year. He's replacing Scotty Burke, who was moved into the school resource officer position. And then I have one more.
On this one, it's gonna be a part-time position. I've kind of painted myself in the corner on this is what I did. I hired a Stephanie Morgan to replace Jim Cornelius up front, and we're gonna start the training process, doing Jim's job because it's a sex offenders, all the TLEX training, computer stuff. So I had to get her in there to get trained. After I hired her, it was brought to my attention that Mr. Cornelius no longer wants to retire. So I'm kind of in a bind there a little bit, but not really. I still have one deputy position open. In this next budget year, I was gonna request 2 additional deputies, one for warrants and transport and one for the patrol division, mainly because we're staying so short-handed and we're behind on our calls for service. So is what I would like to propose to y'all at this point is to allow me to go ahead and hire Stephanie Morgan as a part-time administrative position to learn that job. I have plenty of funds in my salary to cover it based upon all the shortages I've had. Go ahead and let Cornelius move into the warrants and transports full-time. And again, I still have that one deputy's position open. So I will keep it open the remainder of this budget year. And the next budget year, I'm gonna come and request a full-time secretary position to replace Cornelius's position, which I was gonna do that anyway. And then maybe one additional deputy. So is what I'm asking now is to approve Stephanie at a temporary basis. And then maybe sometime in June, we can move her to a full-time position through this current budget year. And again, I do have the resources to pay that salary and the fringe benefits. So that's kind of that position in a nutshell.
Well, I don't think that you need to not fill a deputy position. If you get an opportunity to fill a deputy position, you can fill it.
You still got positions open in your funds, so like, no.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Don't feel the need to say, I'm not gonna fill that till the end of the budget year. If you get a chance, you hire somebody.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to reach a compromise before, but I do appreciate that, Judge, because it is a bad situation.
It is, yeah.
I've got one in the academy, 2 gonna start the academy next month. I hired Mr. Valencia this morning, and I'm still down one patrol deputy position, which I was gonna do without the cover Cornelius position, which I'm thankful I get to keep him. You know, he's got some good experience and he does a great job for me. So, like I said, I kind of painted myself in the corner.
You can't say retirement wasn't that attractive.
I guess so. And it looks like Posey may be one that's doing too. So there we have it, gentlemen.
All right.
Somebody wanna make a motion to approve the,
I move we approve the employee changes in the sheriff's office.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded that
Can
we,
I ask for clarification? So is Morgan gonna be temporary or is she gonna be permanent?
she's a permanent part-time.
Permanent,
Right.
Yes, if we can do it that way. And then hopefully sometime in June, I can move her to full-time.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's what
just
you
needed
say.
some clarification.
Yeah.
Treasurer.
All right. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you.
And Joe and Florida have 149 inmates, 4 contracts with Fort County. And there y'all go. Thank y'all, appreciate it.
You ain't right.
Next on the agenda is under employee changes, it's B, consideration of possible approval of beginning salary of new elections administrator. I think earlier when we, yes, ma'am?
Oh, I'm just saying hi.
And earlier, when the court considered that appointment, there was an issue about salary and nobody knew what the salary was. Somebody found it out since then. I think I've got it. Just a second.
This is the sheriff's department.
There are a lot of changes in the sheriff's department. She's stacking up right there. Did you have something to say?
I always have something to say.
That's what Billy's told us.
And he's retired, he's enjoying life. I have done my homework, and the last election administrator that left, I would like to take over his pay of $57,971.11. That is his outgoing pay.
What was his tenure here? How many years has he been in that position?
I do not
Four.
know this.
I think about 5.
He started in 2019 as the election administrator, and that's when I started. January the 2nd of 2019,
4 years, Lily.
yes,
And you also had service with the county before that.
yes, sir.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
What was Larry's salary?
It's 7,000.
What was that based on? I just wanted, we didn't have I was curious where we got that number from.
Just throw up, some stuff from.
Oh, here's the representative from the
Here's
Brown,
my representative.
this is the representative from the Brown County Elections Commission.
It
Yes.
actually started
whatever
the
that is.
1st of October 2018. And when Karen left, the predecessor, she left at 46,350. So Larry took that pay plus $2,000 raise in addition to what she left. So not only did he get what she left, but she got a raise. So just so you know.
Yeah. Information. Anybody want to make a motion, an appropriate motion
Or,
salary? Oh, whatever you want, whatever you make a motion.
that's what I'm asking is, or do we want to start at Larry's ending salary? Is that the consensus or?
I have the consensus here, starting from Susie Young to Karen to Larry. And the incoming election administrator took the outgoing plus $2,000. I have them all right here.
I just asked the treasurer, she said there's not an official starting salary.
I make a motion to approve the fixed salary for the election administrator. I'm gonna set on your hands.
50, what was it, 57?
57,971.
11.
And 17 cents.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was my extra 6 cents.
57,971.
17.
All right. So it's been, we made we have a motion to start at 57,971.17. Is there discussion in a second?
Well, I was just curious how okay, so he had, I don't know if we're adding his tenure to the starting position or something like that, but we don't have a starting salary for that position.
Right.
Do we need to establish a starting salary for that position? I mean,
Well,
I mean, you know, I don't know.
But I mean, if you think that's appropriate, make a motion, amend the motion, do whatever. This is kind of, that's what we're here for, is to say that.
Does anybody else have any ideas on that? Because we don't do that. Some of the positions we do, some we don't have a starting position, starting salary.
From the HR department, Larry was here somewhere, I've got one that says 2008, one that says 2011, so somewhere in that window, and a recommendation of 50,000. Just what I'm getting from HR.
I just think there ought to be a starting position, and I don't know if
Is
we all thought of,
Dan
should-
HR?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
not me.
you know. We don't always just start somebody else, or we shouldn't. In some cases, I don't know if it's the case or not, you just start at the last person's salary because their starting salary there and then they have their tenure there. Now, you've been there in another position for.
Yeah, I've been with the county over 23 years, so.
It's real odd, I mean, nobody asked me, but I'll throw this in. I was going through some paperwork the other day, and I noticed it was dated 2003. And it said that just because one employee leaves one office and goes to another does not mean they take that salary. They won't take that salary. But as you know, we have done that many, many times, many times. We've let the salary follow that person. So, I'm saying that the election shop is a very, very difficult job. I used to do it. And if she didn't do it, it would fall back on the county clerk. And I don't want that. I'm not saying, telling you what to do, but I'm just saying, it's a very difficult job. I wouldn't want it.
And you could always take applications for it. Totally up to y'all.
What was the election commission's recommendation?
We didn't know the salary at the time.
Yeah, we did.
But I think that
Well,
we,
because it's kind of a weird, they appoint somebody, but they don't set the salary. And so it's this.
so I think that we agreed that they would take that salary. I mean, we didn't know, but we said, I don't know. I wouldn't want to decide, but I'm just saying, as you know, we've done it many, many, many times, even though we say we're not. So,
And that's what Ann was saying, that the precedence is to take over the last
Okay.
one salary. So
Okay, so back kind of to the business at hand. We've got a motion, we've got a second, Larry seconded, to approve 57,971.17. And so, any more discussion, or are we just gonna vote? Okay, all in favor, say aye. It's approved.
Well, as we need to work with the commission in budget time, we need to talk about a lot of things
Thank you
like
very
that.
much.
We do.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
So,
But I think you're exactly right, that it's been a problem for, we don't have an organized salary structure. for everybody.
Larry and them worked on it real hard as he goes back, trying to,
Yeah, that's been years ago.
Years ago.
It's blowed up a million times.
needs to be revisited.
Okay, new business. First on the agenda, under business to be discussed and considered for approval. A, consider authorizing the county judge to sign an agreement for IT security services and pay a monthly charge of $5,636. This agreement will include enterprise endpoint security with antivirus, email backup, email link filtering, and firewall management for all county computers. Is there someone from Goldsmith that wants to?
I understand this is gonna take place of something we currently have.
Yeah,
if I'm not
that was
mistaken.
the first question I was gonna ask.
Hey, good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Sam.
So this will replace one thing that you have, which is the endpoint security, which is currently with a vendor that the county's used in the past, so that will be canceled. It has been paid for already in the current fiscal year, that agreement, and so I don't foresee
So we pay for it annually.
annually currently, and what we're proposing is monthly, so that as the changes of the county, as the county's needs change, we can dial it up or dial that down on a monthly
Do you have
basis.
any idea what that annual is?
The annual fee currently, and from what we could tell, it covers 70 computers, and you'll have closer to 160 computers, is $8,580 per year total. But that only, on the spreadsheet that y'all have in front of you, which is line item 1, under notes, it outlines, and this is the single page document, just the one pager. It outlines the items that this would cover, which is the judge just read out loud. That is only the first line, that's only the first item included under notes called endpoint security agent. And we know that it's not covering everything that you have currently. The rest of those things, meaning the remote monitoring agent, the FIPS support agent, which is a CGIS requirement, the monitoring and ticketing integration, you don't have any of those things in place right now. And then line items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, you don't have any of that in place currently. And so each of those are security issues. So I don't want to go into great detail. I'll be happy to answer your questions, but we don't want to broadcast what's in place and what's not in place from a security standpoint. The county has the right to keep that information restricted. But this would put those best practices in place, is why we're recommending them.
Now, let me ask you, that there's obviously been a lot of discussion about how many computers we have.
Correct.
And nobody seems to know exactly how many computers we have.
We know that it's between 155 and 160 currently. And the goal this week, if y'all are all in the county's email system, we outlined like a kind of a day one type process to secure things. That's why we're trying to do those things this week, so that we don't know a range of computers. We know exactly how many computers you have.
And where did you get that 155 to 160?
Sure. So we've already installed that remote monitoring agent, and we paid for that as a part of the assessment, and we've continued to pay for that even though y'all been out of contract, because it took a lot of effort to get that on all the computers that we could get it onto. And so each of those computers, so to speak, are kind of phoning home and saying, I'm here, and this is the last time that I was seen, and this is the health of it, et cetera. And so that's where that number came from. So those are actively checking into our monitoring system currently.
When it does that, how do you know what computer that is?
So there's two ways that you could, kind of got started at a large level. So we can tell by the IP address often if it is at the courthouse or if it's at the law enforcement center. So that kind of takes the looking for the needle in the haystack, and there's a down which haystack we're looking in. And then there are other things like either the name of it, the user that last logged in, an application, like if something related to JP Corp's installed on it, because it reports all the applications installed. It's kind of a process of elimination. Our goal is to streamline all of that so that it checks in, we know what building it's in, we know what office it's in, what floor of that building it's on, and then what user sits behind it. So that when it has a security issue or it has a malware or some kind of detection, it's, an instant response.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. But that's how we currently,
Yeah, and I would, and maybe this is something that Stephanie could work on. In that, I would like kind of once and for all, for somebody to have a list.
yes, sir.
This is, what I'm saying? It's just, to me, it's kind of bizarre to have an organization this large that somebody can't go. Yeah, we've got 156 computers.
Yes, sir. So
It's just kind of a crapshoot on how many we have.
moving forward, this specifically line item 1 where it says RMM agent, that's remote monitoring and management agent, that's going to tell us not only how many computers you have, where they are, it's going to tell us the serial number of it, the age of it, the health of it, et cetera, so that when we get into the budgeting process, we can run those reports in real time.
Yeah.
And know, here's how many we have, here's how many are 5 years old, here's how many are 2 years old, here's how many are 8 years old.
Perfect.
And we're working with the auditor's office. Specifically, you'll have a system called RCI, that's y'all's inventory management system. We've already visited with the auditor's office about putting those asset tags on every device that comes in that's over a certain value. So a computer, a laptop, not a keyboard, for instance. And that RCI number is going to be tied in the system so that there's a checks and a balances thing of what your inventory, your asset list says versus what IT says. One thing that I'll tell you is this is going to become more and more important because I'm outside my wheelhouse here, but the general accounting standards and practices are changing to where you have to put even leased items on like a depreciation schedule or on an asset schedule. And before, your outside auditors would never ask for those things, or what our experience is, most counties, if it was a lease, it's just like, okay, that's not a big deal. We want to see what does the county own equipment wise. Now we're having to provide documentation and proof of those leases as well. So having a system that can do that is going to help that process because I know that that's one thing that as of this current 2022 audit, more being asked for across all of our county customers.
Okay, and ultimately, the reason I was asking that was not to just be gripey, but, a lot of this is based on unit cost.
Right.
And so if we discover that there's 140 instead of 160, this cost would be less.
Correct. We adjust it on a monthly basis, and you get an itemized bill and breakdown of that. It's integrated with our billing system, because there are times that we see counties that you may have some seasonal workers or some part-time workers. And so you may buy 5 laptops for those people to use, and it's for 6 months. Well, when those go back into inventory, we can turn the license off and it will dial back down. Because you're charged on a per device list. And so we base this on 160, knowing that we're somewhere at 155, 160, but the actual cost would be what the county incurs. I mean, if it comes in at 152 because we phased some out, then that's what the invoice is gonna reflect. I would point out, these are all things that have been discussed in the IT committee and at length, specifically email security. And this implements a much stronger email security policy for the county. And we know from statistics and third-party assessments for any organization that if you're going to be compromised, if your computer system is going to be compromised, you have probably better than a 90% chance of that coming through email. And so this kind of dials those defenses up. This does not change anything to do with licensing for email. That's something that is coming, specifically Microsoft licensing. Y'all aren't licensed properly, and so that's a legal compliance thing, but it's also financial, like a audit or accounting and audit thing. We're assessing that currently, but this doesn't address this. This just implements a stronger email backup system, and then when you click a link in your email, it will vet that what you're clicking on really is what you think you're clicking on. And if it isn't, then it will deny the user from going to it, whether the user wants to go there or not. Be happy to answer any other questions.
Where would these funds come from?
Well, the discussion was that they would come from ARPA.
Well, that would be for 1 year. That's not gonna be here forever. That's kind of like our initial getting everything fired
Because
up.
the technology budget for this year's already been wrong,
It has,
off the water
what,
contract,
excuse me?
the contract.
Oh, okay.
Correct. Yeah, what it takes to get us to the end of the fiscal.
Okay, I didn't know that we were taking that out of the technology.
Because in the beginning, we left it as it was. And then because nobody was hired there, so that's what we were using, and then that's out, so we're at ARPA unless you wanna dig into the contingency.
One thing that would be our goal for your budget workshop is to sit down with you all outside of Commissioners Court and then through the budget workshop process in Commissioners Court and outline, the structure of the IT budget so that you can see if you're going over or under in certain line items like licensing costs versus contract costs versus internet costs. And so currently, I know that's been discussed at length in IT committee as well. Currently, a lot of these funds just kind of come from different places and offices. Our goal for the next fiscal year would be to streamline that so the Commissioner's Court and the Auditor's Office can truly see, what is the county spending on information technology, and we can budget for that as a county instead of on a per office basis.
We can do these one-time things out of, if we choose to do that ARPA, but we gotta budget this out of a yearly deal from now on.
I can hit it, not to get off on my soapbox, but those miscellaneous, non-departmental or whatever they call those, you know what I'm saying? Contingency funds, there's still money in that, right?
Yes.
And so, I would think that it would be more appropriate to pay it out of that than ARPA funds. I mean, those are kind of like you said, those are more one-time special.
Like we're gonna need to buy some equipment or something.
Right.
A major purchase for equipment, which I see coming.
So if I may speak to that, literally items B, C, and D, those are more capital expenditure, which would be more, I'm not telling the court how to handle this by any means, but those are more capital expenditure that would be typical ARPA funding, where A is a recurring cost moving forward. So
would you feel more comfortable taking that out of?
I don't think the reoccurring costs, we should be always figure out how we're gonna pay for that before we ever do it.
I agree.
because we gotta pay it next year and next year and next year.
Next month and next month and
Well,
next
that-
month.
You know what I mean? It continues even after
It
our
does.
long gone.
Right. That's, you did a better job of saying that than I did. So you're right. Okay, you want to make a motion to approve this IT security services?
I will, because I feel like it's a major part, but Gary is
Go ahead.
of getting our, part of getting our pay system back where it's secure, which is part of our goal here. And that's priority one, actually, was it not?
Yes, sir, and that's why we sent out just kind of a schedule for this week, that you should have gotten your county email. That schedule's contingent on this being approved, but our goal is to get things as secure as possible, as fast as possible.
I haven't seen email, but
Yeah,
I just know
I got
that
mine.
all discussions after everything else, this is our, kind of like priority one, is to get our security.
Yes, sir.
This is how we're getting there.
It's been moved.
So your motion doesn't say where to pay from.
We,
Contingency.
contingency, will search, we have to do.
Seconded.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve that signing of that agreement and that those come out of contingency fund. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. No opposed.
Thank
So
you.
it passes.
Is it appropriate that we can go ahead and give the vendor the outgoing vendor notice as a part of that?
Do you have an agreement? Do you actually have it yet?
No, I just have the invoice, but I know it's been paid for through the current fiscal year. So we'll wait until everything's transitioned and then I'll work with you
Okay.
on getting a letter to them.
Okay.
Thank you.
B, you want to go ahead and just go?
Yes,
into
sir.
the next?
So B, C, and D are outlined on this multi-page document. The first page of it has line items 1 through 4, and those are all capital expenditure items. Specifically, let's see, from B lines up with line item 3 on the summary page. This is capital expenditure. This is going ahead and ordering the battery backups that we know we're going to need for all of the computers. We want to go ahead and get those put in place, whether the computer's getting replaced immediately or if it's getting replaced in the next few months. We believe we've already purchased 20 of those as a part of what y'all approved in December. I think there's gonna be 150 to 160, whatever number of computers we land on, of those needed. And because of the lead time and because we can get a little bit of a better rate on them currently, we wanted to go ahead and purchase those as a capital expenditure in the current, just not the full quantity of them, but 75 of them currently. These specifically protect the computer from any kind of surges, brownouts, power issues. In rural Texas, often the computer, the power, when you see the lights go down or you see the lights flicker, that's when it's going to destroy the computer. Our position is we would much rather the user be able to save what they're doing and shut down the computer safely. Or if you take a surge for this $170 device to be ruined versus a $1,200 computer to be ruined. These come with a warranty where the manufacturer, which is American Power Conversion, APC, they'll stand behind the warranty of it. If the surge gets past their device, they have to pay you up to $5,000 in damages.
Those are bought through some sort of buy board.
Those are purchased at CDW and they are on, it's in the packet, they are on,
I didn't know that beyond that.
they are on a DIR contract, which is the state of Texas technology contract. It's the third page, it says CDWG at the top. And if you look at the quantity 75 under contract, it says Texas miscellaneous IT hardware and components, DIR, CPO, cooperative purchasing. So these have already been pre-bid through DIR. And those, as we've discussed many times, but just to make sure everyone is aware, these capital expenditures, if they're on a contract like that, that'll be billed directly to the county. You'll get the direct invoice, and you can see in the summary page the unit price for those. These units have typically, pre-29 or pre-2020, they were around $155 a piece. We've seen them as high as $200 a piece in the last 6 months. And so to get a bid through DIR at $170.49, I think that's a good price for this equipment. So I would ask that be considered for approval to purchase. I can talk about C and D if you want to do all these at once, or if you need to take them at one at a time, it's up to you.
Well, let me ask you a question
Yes,
about that. In the coming weeks and months and years, as we work through
Yes,
your agreement with the county, this is something I'm gonna say, you're gonna get tired of me saying
Okay,
this
sure.
over the next few years.
Okay.
And that is, I just want to be comfortable, and I really think these guys want to be comfortable, knowing that, you know, we're buying a Chevy and not a Cadillac.
Sure.
And so if a half a ton pickup will do, we don't want a 4-wheel drive, 3/4 ton pickup.
Okay.
And so, you know, is this $170 battery backup, is that like the Cadillac and there's something out there that we could be buying for half that?
Sure.
It works just as well?
So there's pretty much two main manufacturers of these devices. One is 1000 V8, which means it should run the computer for about 30 minutes in order to let someone shut down, or if the power's off for 20 minutes, they can just keep working. Really, that's the only thing you could do, is you could reduce that to where it would only run for 15 minutes or 20 minutes. It's not an exact science because it just depends on what's connected to it, but the cost savings would maybe be $20 to $25, $30 most per unit.
Okay, but I'm worried, like the brand, whatever the
Sure, the
brand,
brand.
APC.
Uh-huh.
I mean, is this like the Cadillac version of battery backups? Is there?
No, sir, I wouldn't say that. It's the industry standard version,
Okay.
brand wise. So Trip Light is a standard brand, and that's made by Eaton, if y'all are familiar with the electrical world. APC is made by Schneider Electric, which owns Square D. That's a big electrical manufacturer. Pretty much all of these companies are merging into one of those two umbrellas. There are some off-brand ones.
So this is really an electrical component more than it is a
Correct.
computer component.
Correct. Yes, sir. It is. It is. And I don't think that this is the Cadillac. One reason we recommend this particular model is, one, we've had them for almost 20, well, I've had some of them prior to having this company for over 20 years. Not to say the last 20 years, but we've dealt with this company. We've also had warranty claims with the company, and they've stood behind their product and paid out we've only had one in the last 5 years. I can remember that the surge made it past it and it fried the computer, and they paid out like $1,100 on a 3-year-old computer. So they did stand behind it.
So do you fight that battle when?
Yes, sir, for y'all. Like we submit the ticket if there's a problem to the manufacturer and track that through the technology process. And then any funds that come back, they either would come directly to the county, or if for some reason it comes to us, we'd send you a credit memo for that. But all that's documented in whatever the initial issue was that started the problem.
So if I remember right, these all have like a lead acid battery in them.
They do.
And as they get older, they will get weaker. So if you buy one that's just barely big enough now, as they get older, you'll get less run time before you start realizing they're weak, I would think.
Use up on this technology.
Well, I just
So-
anything like that does.
In a,
Just like golf cart batteries.
Yeah, and I would say we don't want to go under, we don't want to, if you get them just barely run a computer, once they get at least a bit weak, they won't operate. It'll be-
I'm sure not very smart on all of this, but is there nothing you could plug into the main line coming in that protects the whole courthouse?
so
That's what goes down.
that's a great question. So that would be a generator, but even if you had a generator, you would have to have some kind of battery system to keep it running while the generator comes online. We have a county that they're putting in a generator for the entire building, like they have a 5-story building, and they're still putting in either these individual batteries on small computers, or a massive battery for their main computer system. Because you've got
And I
to
think
bridge
that's
that
what he's
gap.
asking.
Yeah.
Could you, is it possible to do a massive battery for the whole system?
Not without rewiring the entire building.
Yeah, that's,
Ooh.
yeah, I could do it. Extra operation.
Yeah. So that's what you see in a hospital, Commissioner. Like if you look above a bed, it'll have a white plug and a red
That's what I
plug.
was going by.
That red plug will be on a battery, which is on a generator. But there's 2 separate wiring distribution systems throughout the building for that. We follow that same guidance and color code scheme for like law enforcement. There are some big batteries that we're going to recommend putting in that will run the server equipment here, and that will run a lot of things out at the sheriff's office. But these are more just on an individual basis. We're just computers at each person's desk.
I will say that in my personal office, I have one of these battery backups on my server. And apparently I got the Mercedes version because I paid well over 200.
For the same size, for the same,
Yes, for pretty much.
You
the
didn't
same
get
thing.
state DIR contract.
No, I sure didn't, but,
No,
but it is an important
I know.
component of your computer because I have had, people who wreck into the electric pole and, my electricity goes out. Well, then my server is saved and it's not gonna lose what I just did until we can get it shut down and everything
And
like that.
those are the larger battery systems for the amount of servers that y'all have. That's something we're gonna be proposing. That's not in this proposal. But that'll be on a DIR contract as well. That takes a little more engineering and behind the scenes to get that size properly based on how much equipment is gonna be here. The last thing I was gonna say about this, when you're back to the Chevrolet or Cadillac, this particular model is what we recommend because we hook them up in a standard fashion so that when there's a support issue and someone calls in, we know exactly what the problem is, or if there's a known problem, or if it's hooked up wrong. You can even tell the user, look at the screen, it has a display on it, and does the screen say over voltage, under voltage, or no voltage? And that tells us like we need to replace it, the breaker flipped in the building. There's some efficiencies in having a uniform system, and that's why we're recommending this particular model.
I agree with him on this deal for sure,
All right.
myself.
You already move on to the next.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So C is, consider authorizing, Goldsmith Solutions to purchase 2 APC Net Shelter SX network enclosures at a cost of $24,378 per unit. These are more physical hardware, meaning like it's a big cabinet that all of the equipment goes into. We know there are going to be multiples of these needed, but we want to go ahead and get 2 ordered so that the new internet equipment can be installed in its final destination, not installed and then removed and then put in there. These are also on that same page, 3rd page of the printout. They are on a DIR contract. These typically are closer to about $3,200 plus shipping. If you go buy them in the private sector and then waive the shipping and give me a DIR price of $24,378. One of these initially will go to the courthouse. One of these initially will go to the sheriff's office. Again, there are going to be more of these. This item will last 20 years. I mean, it's just a big metal box that has locks and keys on it. So the life expectancy is 20 years, where those batteries, to the commissioner's point, the battery will go out over time. We usually see those last anywhere from 3 to 7 years if your power is really good. It'll last 5 to 7 years if your power is really bad. It'll last 3. So those do have life expectancy, where item C, the network enclosure, is something that will last you long term. Any questions on that?
That's like a component rack with a locking door, is that what we're asking?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's a standard size and a standard depth where all the equipment that we're ultimately proposing will fit in it. We've done all the math on that to make sure it works.
Okay, next.
D is considering authorizing Goldsmith Solutions to order 3 SonicWall TZ370 firewalls with rack mount kits at a cost of $1,377.10 each. This, I will tell you, while it's a capital expenditure, this is more of a stopgap measure until we can get to where we need to be. So we purchased these on a 2-year agreement. I believe within a year, maybe year and a half, they'll be replaced. They have licensing. It's a physical device, but it also has licensing that's required for it, and this includes all of that licensing. But this replaces the 3 firewalls, which are going to be courthouse, one of them at the law enforcement center, and then one, I think, at I think it's veterans. But just know that there's going to be a larger firewall at a much higher expense that is coming. This is more just how do we, I don't want to say Band-Aid, but how do we secure the system where we are right now while we're building a system that needs to be built long-term. But at a total cost, if you take that number times 3, it comes out to $4,089.30. It's our opinion that for $4,000 is real money. All of this is real money, obviously, but $4,000 is a decent amount of money. But the risk of not having a up-to-date maintained firewall is much higher than $4,000 to the county as far as the risk level of what would happen if you have a problem. So we would ask that the court consider approving this purchase as well. And this is not on a DR contract, partly because of the cost, partly because we could find it cheaper in the private world. Like this ultimately will either get ordered from the Sonic Guard company or even possibly through an authorized retailer that's on Amazon. 50,000. 70 months to go.
So when you come out with the bigger the better, or when you get the bigger the better,
Sure.
what, do they just build the jump pile?
It's possibly they could go to the junk pile. More than likely, they would stay at, we'd shift one to Veterans Office, which is a county office. And in disclosure, we've talked about what is over there, but I've never seen it. That's on our short list to go look at. And then also the county agent building is something that the county's responsible for. We're not really sure what's in place there. Texas A&M provides the computers, but often the network and internet and all that's the county. So it could be that they're repurposed, but I can't to certainty say that they won't go to the junk pile. But when I looked at the risk versus reward, it's my opinion that the $4,000 is worth it to protect the county in the interim while we're working on building out the new system. And to give you an idea, a firewall for an organization y'all's size, first of all, there would be two of them for redundancy, so if one has a problem, the other one takes over. That's more of like a $20,000 capital expenditure for like a 5-year agreement. So this is, and that's just for like the main firewall system. This is 3 of them for a total cost of $4,000. So that's why we're asking for this currently.
So the full scale one would actually go with the law enforcement center where the internet enters our
That's
system
Yes,
has
sir.
the internet.
that's where it would go. And we're even looking at options. The internet providers have said they can provide some of that stuff as a service where we can pay a monthly fee or pay a one-time fee. I'm more on the one-time fee thing because of conversations we've had, but it's still to be determined what brand, what size, what cost that is. These are just based on, we know we can secure things and put these in now and get you better than where you are right currently.
We're probably gonna have to sit down between now, and even before budget, and talk about what kind of money we're gonna spend doing some of these upgrades and figure out where it's gonna come from.
Sure.
We may have to set some money aside just to, out of like ARPA funds. I'm gonna suggest perhaps that ARPA funds for part of this major project, but we need to know where we're going. And probably, maybe we may wanna talk about it before we get the budget, just get a wild idea what's happening, I'm thinking. But don't we have to at some point declare where this ARPA money's gonna go pretty soon? There's a deadline on that. I see some shaking
We've
heads.
got a report due April 1st, and then we've got another year before the final report.
So,
We've started compiling a list and we're working through review and then getting some budget numbers and then getting some quote numbers and, finding out what we can do on a contract so that it doesn't have to go through a lengthy process since it's already pre-bid. But I would completely agree with what you're saying, Commissioner. Goal one, day one, literal day one, is to secure everything that can be secured, because you can do everything right. We can do all of this and still have one problem that affects the county. But we know that there are a lot of things that have a lot of room for improvement on a security standpoint. And so that's what we're trying to do right now.
We're just changing the locks right now.
I understand. But I don't see your list of base supplies is not on this today.
That was my decision.
Oh, okay,
We'll tackle that on a different.
okay. Well, that's some of the stuff we're fixing to.
Well,
start thinking about long-haul delivery.
I was trying to make it a little more palatable,
I understand.
a little at a time.
Well,
I wasn't gonna push my luck.
well, I'm gonna say from what I saw, what I've seen, and what I've been, the IT meetings I've been making, we're gonna have to do some major stuff. This is just a start. And I think that we'll have to consider where this, and this is not the yearly reoccurring fee we're talking about, and a lot of the hardware and stuff needs to be bought, purchased, which I think is more in line with ARPA expenditure. So we can keep doing this here, no, we'll do this out of, at some point, we're gonna probably want to think about what bigger picture. But I mean, I'm agreeing with doing all of these items today, and I would suggest we did them out of ARPA, but I don't know if you want to keep doing that little spot at a time, if we need to talk about that, another issue or what.
So, are y'all okay with making one motion for,
That's what I was about to ask.
CCND.
We,
it sounds like Joel just made a motion to approve DC.
I'll make that a motion, but I'm just stating that there's gonna be coming to us every week or two of this for a little while. We're gonna have to probably at some point sit down and talk about how much we're gonna put aside for this project.
So absolutely, because I don't want to have to drag the bureaucracy out anymore. There's legal things that you'll have to do, and that's not a commentary on the process, but I don't want to drag it out any more than we have to. We're trying to get these items approved so we can start making improvements. We've talked about improvements. We've seen what needs to be done now for several months. And so this is about actually taking action to make improvement. The capital expenditure, replacing computers, replacing server, replacing cabling, firewall, those big ticket items that are going to take substantial money, and it would make sense for that to be an ARPA funded because it is capital expenditure. Those we need to sit down and talk about, as the Commissioner saying, as a budgetary process and outline, even line items for that. We don't want to drag that out one decision at a time where the court sees, well, we're doing this over here, but we did this 2 weeks ago, and where you don't really know where we're going. That's more of a strategic plan that we're working on. But again, goal one is to secure what you have currently in place.
All right, I think you made a motion to
Make a
approve
motion.
those.
I'll second.
You seconded. Any more
And-
discussion?
to be paid out of the ARPA funds.
Yes. Any discussions? Y'all okay? Okay. All in favor, say aye. None. So it passed. Thank you for your presentation.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for your time today.
Anything else anybody want to talk about?
Somebody got the jail report over there.
Oh my gosh. I thought I saw it go by.
Man,
It did go by. You've got it somewhere.
I did.
Thank you.
Bills.
Oh, that's right.
So the only addition to the bills was the sheriff's best med bill,
was the what now?
sheriff's best med.
Oh.
Did we have a new one?
Barrett's got the new one to
Okay.
sign. We didn't kill more trees for one bill,
That's perfect.
so we just
Thank you.
gave Gary a money.
Wait, we got a new one right here. We're fixing to make a motion. Just. Yes. You all right?
Keep the seat.
Yeah, all right.
Well, so often we don't have,
Stuff all the time.
so often we don't end up somehow with a signed copy of the bill.
Before I get before, it's like the kindergarten class.
Did you do another private line on there?
Yeah, who's in the
Oh,
non-action, or the non, what do you call it?
Okay, I didn't see.
There you go.
You're on me.
You were making a
What
motion
goes
to.
around
I
comes
move we approve the bills.
Commissioner Worley has made a motion that we approve payment of bills.
That's correct.
As to the new one. Second by Commissioner Shaw. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? There is none. Now, does anybody have anything else?
Sign in bill.
They're coming.
All right, we are adjourned at whatever time it is, 9:55.
Hey, see, the ABC's